Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Wellness Gala free online series, Take Care of Yourself. My name is Lee Grabarczyk of soulfulmandalas.com. I am an intuitive channel who creates sacred geometry to enhance awareness. So today we're going to be talking about emotions, no small feat there. And before we get into this, prior and previous communications, we've talked about how coping strategies connected to COVID, right? Coping strategies connected to how it is that we survive in the world, how these coping mechanisms then developed a kind of personality, how these personalities then projected as a way of maintaining themselves, belief systems, and how belief systems now in the context here of emotions are enhanced by and energized by emotional content. So everything in life needs to flow to be successful, right? Money needs to flow in an economy to make it successful. Electricity needs to flow through a line. If there's a break, the wires bounce around. Our chi energy needs to flow, otherwise we have inflammation. Blood needs to flow, otherwise we have inflammation. So different systems need to have a flow, a kind of a movement to them that allows for them an expression of themselves. And emotion is no different. Emotion or energy in motion is essential to have good emotional IQ. So emotions are just a kind of, for me, they're very much a GPS. It's where I am. It's what it is that I'm experiencing. It's my way of kind of really connecting in and saying, okay, what's happening here? And one of the ways in which to balance emotion is kind of first based on the premise of, what am I feeling? What am I actually experiencing in this? And emotions have layers to them. It's not just that I have necessarily one emotion. I think there's a tendency sometimes to compartmentalize it in such a way to say, oh, you know, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling whatever. But all of our emotion, or for many times, at least for me, I have different kinds of emotions happening at the same time, right? I may have won an award. I'm very happy for it. It reminds me of a person that I lost, so I'm a little sad. I might have some anxiety about talking about the fact that I got that award. That might give me some, I might be a little nervous. But I'm happy, and I'm a little melancholy, and I'm a little nervous. I'm doing all of those at the same time. And I would say that at any given point, I could probably rattle off at least 5 emotions that I'm experiencing in that moment that give testament to what's actually happening. So my emotions are my little GPS system. They're their little window as to this is where I am now. This is not who I am. This does not define me in the broader sense of who I happen to be. But stylistically, it will create a certain kind of identity when I become attached to an expression that I say, this is who I am. In other words, I might have to be the fun guy, or the, happy guy, or the angry guy, or the sad guy, or whatever. But emotional content changes because it's energy and it shifts depending upon what's happening in that moment. I take that information, I incorporate it into my experience, and I go, okay, this is how I felt with that. Maybe not such a good idea. And then I move on from there. So there's an enormous connection here between emotion and the body. And that's one of the things that I actually want to connect to is created to balance. So and I'm going to try and give you some examples here from me, some of the stuff that has happened to me that really sort of went, wow, that there really was something happening within my self-care, within my emotional balance that life was teaching me. Because when the emotion is blocked, when it is being judged, when it is being said to be, you can't have that emotion, problems occur. Because then the natural expression of it is blocked. This is even true in communication. If a child is talking and is interrupted repeatedly, very powerfully, they can develop a stutter. Because the energy is not allowed to express itself in a way that's authentic to its experience. In other words, a person isn't just allowed to be. And when I'm not allowed to be and express what it is that I'm actually experiencing, then I'm taking those emotions, which are inviolate, meaning indestructible. They're they're a form of energy. And I'm putting them somewhere. I'm putting them into some area of my life. They might go to body level. They might go into some kind of pent-up rage that then gets expressed later on. Water behind a dam, right? If it isn't allowed to drain a certain way, it flows over the dam or it overruns the dam. And so it is sometimes with emotions. So some of the specific examples for me have been, I used to have a lot of anxiety, a lot of GI problems, and I had gone through some difficult times. And I was in a workshop dealing with emotions. And I remember I was so in my emotional state. I was crying. I was really getting into it. I was really just in my experience. And afterwards, I was on my way to developing some severe problems, Crohn's disease, etc. I didn't have that problem. I had so much emotional stuff built up inside of me that I was blocked energetically. My emotions were literally tied up. I was not digesting them. For those of you who may have problems with your stomach, right? I couldn't stomach this. I couldn't stomach it, right? What happens when we get too much emotion coming in and we aren't able to process it? We throw up, right? The body is kind of like saying, okay, we're going to push that back out. So it does that. Or if it's too much, it faints. The body faints. But with most of our emotional content that's coming in, we're really at a place where it's really important to responsibly deal with it. And that means being okay with whatever it is that we're experiencing. One of the ones that really comes up as a big problem is anger. Because people make such a judgment about anger. They say, oh my goodness, I can't express it. I'm evolved. I have done yoga workshops. I have been through all sorts of meditation. I don't do that. I'm above that. Right? Oh, that isn't something that I would know anything about. Really? What if somebody accidentally rolls over your toe with a car? It's still going to hurt. So the emotions need to be able to be processed out and expressed. I remember there was a woman that I knew who worked at a deli, really, really evolved, just fantastic. And she was so grounded and so clear and so just incredibly insightful. And she had 2 sisters, and the 3 of them their mother had remarried. So the 3 sisters, the mother remarries, and the mother marries a man that's abusive, incredibly abusive, horrifically so. And I met the 2 girls and they were fine. And I met the other sister who I had never seen before, and she did not seem right. And her sister had said that they were fine as children, but she was now a schizophrenic, and she had mental health issues, etc. And then she said this, you know, when he would do the things that he would do with us, the 2 of us, 2 of the 3 sisters, would cry endlessly. She said, our other sister never did. The shock to her system, the pain of it was such that it actually mentally destabilized her. I remember one time I was having a minor procedure done, a little wart underneath my fingernail, was removed, and I was with a dermatologist that was having a bad day. And the dermatologist was going to give me some anesthesia. And that anesthesia went right under the tip of my fingernail. No fun. And I remember thinking, wow, this is an incredible amount of pain. Like, this is bad. And it kept growing and growing. And I was just I don't know, for some reason I found it funny. And I started laughing and carrying on and just like, holy crap, how is this happening? And the doctor came in and said, most people faint when that happens. I've yet to have anybody laugh. So moving the energy, so if I'm having an experience and I'm moving the energy, then the energy is no longer going to be residing in my body so that my body maintains its resiliency. Another example, I remember I was having some work done, some very heavy-duty deep tissue work done for massage work. A great guy. And he's working on my feet, and boy, that was like, oh. And I remember he was saying, well, you can let go, or you can be in pain. And what was so interesting is that when he would work on my feet, and feet are how it is that we ground, how it is that we define ourselves, what we stand for, right? So working on feet in massage therapy is a big deal. So he'd work on the feet and it would just be, and I would just cry. I would cry and I would let it go and I would cry and I would cry. And at the end of it, there'd be no bruising. And I looked so much younger. And I remember thinking, so great. I really, really feel great. I really feel like, you know, alive again. So the emotional content, and again, if I am able to, so if I'm not able to express myself emotionally, you know, I don't like that, and then it gets built up. And then this is particularly a power dynamic that can happen with people. People in authority, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a boss later on, and they express themselves and they're very aggressive and they're angry because they're in control and they're going to tell you what to do and because they have the right to do that, blah, blah, blah. And as a child, we may say, well, you know, I can't be angry because it's bad, my parents will abandon me, etc. So there is a coping mechanism that exists with this. And in some cases, when people are really in a state where they're not getting that energy removed, where they're not communicating it through, maybe it's through something creative, maybe it's just through martial arts, maybe it's through some kind of singing or dancing or whatever. But if they're not getting that emotional content out, then they're at risk for problems, like addiction, for example. And then they lose that emotional IQ. The emotional IQ is the ability to deal with difficult emotional states, complicated emotional states, in a way that is so well managed that the experience is simply moved through. Anger, sadness, all of those feeling states, which get, you know, really poo-pooed, when they're expressed naturally, is really, really in, you know, kind of, they come and they go. You know, I'm upset and then I'm done. You can see it even with children. They get upset, they do their thing, and then they're right back. But we have the capacity to do that too. But if we're not allowed to vent or to express ourselves, and I don't mean this in some kind of abusive or nasty way, but when we're able to say how we feel in a way that really is authentic, true to the experience, this is where I am, we're letting people, first of all, know who we are, which is a gift. We're giving ourselves the permission to be ourselves so we can discover ourselves in the process of communicating ourselves emotionally. And also in that process, we recognize that we have the right to our feelings. We have the right to express our feelings in the way that we're experiencing them. But if we don't do that, if we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to do that, what happens is that then we are in a state of judgment and repression. And at the moment that we get into repression, we have to say, I can't do that because if I do that, blah. So now I have to justify it. And every time I get close to it, I have to justify it. And I can't say that because that'll upset them. And I can't do that. And then I go back and back and back. And then the more that I do that, the more I start disempowering myself. And this is kind of, this good mental health is created by, again, the release of the energy, because if I'm not communicating it, then I'm holding a resentment. And a resentment is like an undigested, it's like really like a little negative nodule almost to me. It's how I kind of envision it. It's this bad, bad feeling of negativity. And when these things reside in the body, they can be very dangerous. Many doctors even believe that when you hold on to resentment and anger for a long period of time, it can cause cancer. Or even with the heart, it's not that the heart attacks us, it's that we attack the heart. Because we're not allowing ourselves to experience our experience so that we can move on to the next thing. The outside world and what it is that it does and how it is that it does it to us really is secondary to how it is that we treat ourselves and when we're our own advocate. If I am not acting authentically and expressing myself true to what's actually happening, and I'm misrepresenting a point of view for the purposes of getting somebody's approval, you know, could be seen as passive-aggressive, codependent. If I'm doing that, then I've misled people as to who it is that I am. And I've done so under the auspices of, oh, I'm so great because I've risen above my emotional difficulties. Or I've risen above my anger and my frustrations about things. Oh, I'm so evolved. But in the process of when I'm doing that, then they're going to be looking at me to behave a certain way. They're going to say, I had a relationship with you. This is how you presented yourself. Now, why are you doing this? Why are you now not authentic to what it is that you originally presented? Or why are you no longer in alignment with that? And then I have to then turn myself into this, fit myself into this little caricature that I have created because I wasn't willing to be open and honest about how I was experiencing something and what I was feeling in a way that legitimately let them in. And so the intimacy, this is another form of emotional IQ and a good mental health. Intimacy is the willingness, at least for me it is the willingness to state how I feel about anything. Appropriately, of course. We don't want to have like some huge blowout in the middle of like a church service or in the middle of some kind of family function. We want to make sure that all these things are handled in a way that is thoughtful. But if I'm, when I'm doing that, then I don't have to worry about so much. And when I'm living this life, I can actually look at my life and say, people know who I am. You think one of the most important things is to be known. Like there's a big thing about, I want people to know who I am. I want people to get who I am. I want people to really understand, blah, 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 blah. But part of that responsibility is on me to communicate those things, whatever they may be, to risk disapproval, so important, so that people can then say, oh yeah, I get it. Now in time, as I give myself the permission to know that I can communicate a problem that I'm experiencing, what happens for me then is the next time that there is a problem, I can manage it better. Because I'm not dealing with this backlog of unexpressed feelings that are just waiting like a trigger to just explode and to come out, like somebody says something and then I lose my mind. If I am reactive, meaning if I am at a point of not thoughtfulness, but reactivity, then I'm really not in a good mental health state because what I'm doing is, and I'm not talking about something acute where there's a fire or maybe something that needs to happen, we all need to move and I need to, do something that's more intense, but I'm just saying in general, if I am not like, really expressing that and not like dealing with that on a daily basis and talking about little things, then I'm going to get pent up and then I'm going to be exploding because all of my built up like emotion behind a dam is going to come out. That's why when people are violent, a lot of time that's seen as really aggressive and oh my goodness, they're so aggressive. No, they're in a weakened state because they become incapable of managing their emotional states that have become backlogged over such a long period of time that they're almost helpless under their impact. And in a certain circumstance, they launch forward with all of this unexpressed, all of this emotion that has never been expressed. And they've lost sight of what's what. They no longer know what's happening in this moment versus what happened like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And in doing that, they end up being a victim or being at the mercy of their own unexpressed emotional content. And so when we're doing this kind of work of working with emotions and expressing our feelings and stuff, we can do it in a range. We can have a lot of fun. And also if I cut out the dark part, so if I truncate the dark, if I kind of edit it, right? Like I have opportunities to express how I feel and I don't do them, etc. And I try to do this, whatever this high-minded stuff is. When that is happening, all of the range of emotional expression, the richness that I am experiencing gets diminished. So when I cut out all of that kind of more lower vibe, like the root chakra kind of energy, the upper energy is also impacted. Because everything is continuously connected. Everything needs to flow from root chakra right up through the violet colored in the higher 7, 8 chakra ranges. Because that is another flow of energetic systems. And so part of the work and part of the hard work that we do in spirituality and in, even in therapy is working through being okay with who we are, how we see things. If we have a problem with some of the stuff because it's been backlogged for so long, we make little steps, baby steps to get to a point where we're more comfortable. And from there, we can then build. So lot to this, a lot to this. One other one that just was fun for me. The universe also on top of this is constantly creating circumstances that address different sort of unexpressed emotional content. In other words, I have a feeling state and I'm not getting to it. What's happening is that through law of attraction, I'm pulling that in. I'm pulling in that energy that maybe it's combative or maybe it's something else, but I'm pulling that energy in, and I am doing so in a way that is then manifesting it in some way to allow it to exist and come out. So I'm going to go on this trip. I'm going to go on this great trip. I'm all excited. I'm going to go away for a couple weeks. Can't wait. Very busy day. I'm all like running around like a crazy person. I had a bunch of things happen that week and I was just sort of pushing down emotionally, not dealing with it. And I go into get ready to pack and get all of this stuff in the bedroom. And I shut the door and somehow or another, I locked myself out of my own bedroom. And the way to get in there wasn't working. There's like a little like lever that you switch on the inside, you know. And it didn't work. And now I'm thinking about how little time I have to sleep and I have to get up in the morning and I'm just, and I'm getting upset and I'm thinking about things connected to work and relationships and I'm getting hot and I'm just like, but I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to soldier on. So I go through and after 2 or 3 hours, I have to completely take apart this doorknob, just disembowel the damn thing. I took a hammer and a screwdriver. I'm opening it up. I'm breaking it apart. I'm like, screw it. So I go through all of this stuff, and I cut myself, and I cut myself pretty badly. And then all of a sudden, I cut myself, and I'm so upset, and I start crying, and I start wailing, and I'm just like, and I go, and all the tears come out, and I'm bleeding, and I'm like, that door will never open. I'm never going to get into it, and cry. And then all of a sudden, I heard, click, the door opened. It's like the universe went, okay, we gave you what you needed. So in all of this, it's to be kind to myself, to love myself in the process of my own being and becoming, to celebrate my feeling states, good, bad, or whatever they happen to be, to recognize them as my GPS, as my sensing devices that allow me to experience the universe, to love myself in all of those things, to love myself in my state of my own feeling, and to recognize it as a cherished gift, and to operate out of that way of respecting other people and their feelings, and respecting other people's perspectives and recognizing it's their own. It doesn't have to be mine. So I don't have to go into this controlling state about it. I can do it lightly with love. So thank you for watching. Me on the Wellness Gala free series, Take Care of Yourself. Please visit wellnessgala.com for more information, and please stay well. And next week, we're going to be talking about finding your purpose. So again, these things build on one another. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.